guys, my name is Kenzie and I'm going to be your art instructor today. And today we're going to be painting a summer theme painting, which is the picnic, I call it. And I just feel like this emulates everything about summer. We have a nice drink here, we have some watermelon, and we have a picnic bench, hence why I called it picnic. So I am excited to kind of play around, do an ombre of colors right here for the drink, and then also kind of play a bit with gradients and making sure that we're not going too light and too dark. So we're playing with our washes. So let's get started. All right, so you'll see here I have all my supplies ready to go. I have my paper towel, my 2 waters, I have my paintbrushes, I have my paint palette, and I have my painter's tape. I also have my boards that I'm going to be attaching my painting to. So let's get painting. We actually went on a cruise a couple months ago, and that's where this little cup thing comes from. We went on the Royal Caribbean, and they serve all these fancy drinks in these cute little cups. So I'm going to be taking a picture, or I guess my reference photo is going to be a picture from the cruise that we took a couple months ago. So I thought that was kind of fun. And as I'm putting my tape on, I'm trying to make sure that it's all around the same width, so it doesn't look a little funky when we take the tape off. Okay. Perfect. This is an optional step. You don't have to do that. I like it, so if I'm working on another project, I can simply just take this away. And I also actually really love the lines that it makes when I take it off, especially during a landscape. Okay, so I'm going to start with my watermelon first. Also, sorry about my hands. I was painting my house this week and I could not get this off. So I'm going to start right here at my watermelon, and you'll see little dots. So the first dots is going to be where I want to start to transition to that white color of the watermelon, and then the second lowest dots is where I kind of want to transition to the green. So I am going to apply water all over my watermelon, and I want it to go down to the second line. And the reason for that is because I am now going to use the wet on wet technique to slowly create that soft blend from the pinkish reddish watermelon color to the white. Okay, so now that that's wet, let's grab our color. So I'm going to be mixing my cadmium red, maybe a little bit of with permanent rose. There we go. That's a really pretty color. Okay, let's put it down. Yeah, that's perfect. And you'll see how here at the edges, it just starts to kind of bleed and create a really soft blend, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to focus on the top. Okay, so see where the first dots are? That's where you kind of want to stop. And I'm not going to create an absolutely perfect line at all. Oh, it's really wet. Lift some of the paint. I am just kind of touching the line at different points, some higher, some lower, because it is not perfect at all. Okay, cool. So while this is wet, I'm actually going to do a little bit more of the wet on wet technique. And I'm going to apply some darker shades, a little bit more reds and pinks, and just touch down different parts to create some depth within my watermelon. So this would technically be the edges of the watermelon, so I want them to be a little bit darker. I also want to create a highlight, so I'm going to get rid of all of the water on my brush. I'm going to tap my napkin, and I'm going to just lift up different points. Probably not where my ink mark is, but just next to it. Just next to it. Maybe different points on here. I'm not going to touch. That way I have just some natural highlights. I'm going to mix a little bit of indigo to my red, and I'm going to touch different points. See, I'm just kind of going over and over it until I'm kind of happy with how it looks. And I can always go over this again when it's wet on dry. I probably will do another layer, but I just first want there to be some natural blends as well. Okay. Oops. I'm going to mix a little bit more indigo because I want there to be a little bit more of a shadow. Okay, right here. So you'll see here, I've already decided that my shadows are going to be on this side. So now I have to be paying attention to whenever I'm doing shadow work on my plate and my cup right here, that I'm creating consistency where I'm putting my shadows. So now I have to kind of be thinking where I'm going to be putting all of that. Okay. I'm kind of going to darken it around where the line is as well, the ink line, to kind of blend that out. Shadow the top a little bit. Okay, I'm happy with this being my first layer. I feel like at this point I'm just kind of moving stuff around too much. I'm gonna let that dry. And I am going to work on, let's do our cute little cup right here. Okay, so I want this to kind of be kind of a peachy color. So I'm gonna mix my red with orange. So I am going to put my first color down. I'm going to leave a little bit of room just by the rim right here, just to create kind of an effect on the glass. I'll probably do it right there too. No, I'm going to do this all the way to the edge. So around here, I'm going to stop and I'm going to try to transition to kind of like a lighter color. I'm going to create some highlights though first, picking up some of the color around the rim. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to create more of like an orangey yellow color now. So I'm going to actually mix in some yellow. Yeah, and I'm going to touch it right here. You'll see that's still pretty dark. And I've got some ice in here. So I think I'm going to move around and create some like cubed ice in here. This part doesn't have to be perfect at all. Ice cubes are not perfect. But I at least kind of just want to outline what ice would look like. And then I want to have a straw that we'll come back to later. Okay, so I'm going to go in now with more yellow in this peachy yellow color that we just created. And I'm now going to touch it right here. Again, you'll see this is more yellow. Kind of bring up this yellow a little bit more. And I'm going to get rid of everything on my brush. I'm going to tap ever so slightly, and I'm just going to pull. And by tap ever so slightly, I'm going to tap the color that I just picked up. And I'm going to pull this color all the way up so it gradually gets softer as we get more towards the top. I'm going to be moving around my ice cubes a bit right here. And I'm going to come back to the ice cubes and kind of change that color. Picked up too much color, so I tapped my napkin to get rid of it. I want this color to be down yellow a little bit more, so I just touch the yellow and I'm bringing it down. Okay, so I want right here at the bottom to have a lot of depth to it. So I'm going to touch around here with a lot of that cadmium red, just in the center, right here. And then I'm going to pull in a little bit more of that yellow right here with that cadmium and yellow. And just touch right there. I'm going to let this dry before I do anything else to that. Okay, fun. I like that. That was a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm gonna let these two fun little things dry. And what I can't do now is actually work on the sky because I don't want there to be any type of bleeding into my cup. I'm gonna work on the plate. So this is gonna be a little bit tricky because mixing blacks and whatnot and shadowing is not the easiest thing to do in the world. So you have to make sure when you're mixing with black that you always try it on a scratch piece of paper first before you lay anything down, because if you go too dark with the black, it's almost impossible to kind of fix it. So I've mixed up my black, and how I get my gray color is by using the black with a lot of water. So that feels really really soft. So I'm going to use that color. So I'm going to shadow right here on my first line of my plate. Just like that. So you'll see here how I have a really harsh line. I have a thing about harsh lines and I do not like them at all. So I got rid of the water on my brush. I tapped my napkin and I'm just going to blend this out. I'm seeing that I'm moving pigment around. So I'm now tapping my napkin whenever I see that I've picked up a lot of that color that I don't want. And boom, now we have a perfect blend. I'm going to do it now on the other side. Okay, remember the harsh lines? I'm going to get rid of the water on my brush, tap my napkin, and just touching the very edge. And I just picked up some black, so I'm getting rid of it now. I'm going to be blending it out. I picked up some black. I'm blending it out. Here to be a shadow right here as well. I'm thinking in my head right now is like, oh, do I want to paint this plate a different color or do I want to leave it white? I'm very indecisive. I put a little bit of this cadmium color right here on my plate because with white, sometimes it kind of absorbs some of the colors around it. And I'm going to get my black right here, my shadow color, and I'm going to tap the edge. But I want you to still to be able to see the cup's reflection on the plate. Okay, so right underneath the watermelon as well, there is going to be a shadow. So I'm going right up to the edge of the watermelon. And as it gets like where the watermelon curves, there's going to be less shadow underneath it and more shadow right at the bottom. So keep that in mind as well. I'm blending out my shadow again with just water wherever I see any harsh lines, and I'm going to go in now and make the shadow a little bit darker. And now I'm just going to go over kind of like my ink marks to kind of blend those out a bit. And I'm going to come back to the plate. But for now, it's good enough. Okay, so at this point, my watermelon is pretty much dry. So I want to go in again with my second color just to kind of make it a little bit more vibrant. So I'm going to go in with my cadmium red. And you can definitely see the difference. How now this color is just kind of sitting on top, so it's very bold. So right here, you see I have a harsh line. I'm blending this out with just water, the same technique that we did with the shadow before. And all right here, I have a harsh line, right? That we want to get rid of. So I'm just blending it out. So I'm going to dry this since I smudged the other side and I don't trust myself. And right here with the ink markers, I want to go in and just make it a little bit more defined and blend it out before it completely dries. Yeah. I want it at the top a little bit too. And I'm going to go right up to the line right here. And I feel like that's already so dark, so I tapped my brush into the water, and I'm just going to use this color that I have on my sheet already. And this is going to be the color that I use that I'm going to be dragging around. And I'm just very loosely going up to this white line. If I go over a little bit, it's not the end of the world. Tap a little bit. So we want this first color right here of green to be pretty soft, and you kind of want to bring it down pretty far. Down towards the bottom, because we'll just have a strip of the outside watermelon part. So for the outside water part, I'm just going to mix up a large amount of that Hooker's green and maybe a small amount of indigo. I'm going to go in now and just kind of do a very small line at the bottom. Now this line doesn't have to be perfect. Cool. Really light color here and just fill in some spots. Okay. And I kind of want to blend this line just a little bit. So just with water, tapping my napkin at different points, I'm just going to make the blend between the soft green and the darker green a little bit more subtle because I feel like it's really in your face. Just using water, tapping my napkin when I see I'm starting to pull green around. The dragging. Perfect. Okay, cool. So if your watermelon is dry at this point, you can definitely paint your little seeds. I actually just mixed that Hooker's green color that I just did with the purple for the shading. I just mixed that color with black. And I'm going to create some seeds. So with another brush, I'm going to tap it with water. And I'm going to just blend the sides of it, so it's not such a harsh line. So maybe have a brush next to you that you're not using already ready to go with water. Just kind of just blend it out. I feel like I like that so much better. Yeah, because this just looks so harsh. I don't like how that looks. And I'm going to go in and just kind of shadow just a little bit more while this is dry, just touching where the ink is, because I really want to blend out the ink marks. You shouldn't be able to see the ink marks. Blending out that line a bit. I have another harsh line, so I'm going to get rid of it with just water. Line. I'm just kind of going to touch around. So I went over my ink line, so I'm just going to go in a little bit with a darker shade and kind of blend around just to kind of get rid of the ink marks. I don't want to see those. So just touching different points around it just to kind of blend it out. And I'm going to use the dryer on this to help speed up the drying time. So I'm applying water first for the sky for a couple of reasons. Reason number one, I like to have soft blends in my sky. Number two, sometimes with watercolor paper, the paper dries really quickly, and then you can have, and then you'd be left with lots of lines, and I don't want lines in my sky. So when I'm using large surfaces of paper, I like to just cover it with water first. It just buys me extra time. The trick here with the clouds, I find, depending on your paper, again, some paper it's really easy just to grab like a paper towel and you can actually just blend and dab your paper towel and it kind of lifts clouds. Some paper, it just doesn't really work. So I'm going to show you guys the technique where we're just going to kind of move around the page with our blue, kind of creating our own cloud shapes. So the clouds really work well if you start really light. If you start too dark, it's kind of hard to create like a nice well-blended sky. So I'm going in here with a really light blue color. You'll see how I'm going to be leaving what we call white space, which is when we let the paper just be the white, the highlight of it. So I'm going to have a big cloud right here. And because it's wet on wet, you'll see how it already naturally just starts to blend. Grab a little bit more blue. No. Moving around. Different parts. Okay, so I have identified a few clouds. So I'm going to go in now and I'm going to just kind of create a little bit of shadow where my clouds are. Maybe even go in the clouds a little bit. Right here I have a cloud just to kind of make it stand out more. Right here it looks like there's a cloud. And because it's wet on wet, it will naturally just kind of blend and do its own thing. Okay, so you can go in now with a clean napkin and you can kind of just dab around different points if you're finding that the blends aren't the best. I want there to be a little bit more gap right here. A little bit more shadow right here. Shadow's a lot, so I'm going to go in and kind of break it up. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to just dry it because I don't want to smudge it. So I'm just going to hit up this corner with a little bit of brown. Just either to kind of represent shadow or a table. It's just kind of an awkward part of the painting that I just kind of want to cover. Okay, cool. So now we're going to work on the tablecloth, and I'm thinking I kind of want to make it yellow, not too bright. I'm going to put water down. You'll see my water starting to get a little muggy because I still have some brown on my page, which is fine. That doesn't really bother me. I'm going to go in with a really bright yellow. I actually don't mind that I have muggy water right now because I feel like it just adds a little bit more depth to my table cover. Okay, cool. That's going to be my first layer. I want it to be a really soft table cover. I don't want to make it too in your face. Yeah, I'm going to bring in some of that brown. I actually really liked how it was kind of muggy. So I'm actually lifting brown from my palette and using that for my base. I'm going around the glass, going in the gap right here. I was actually gardening this week, and I think it's called a trowel. I was using the trowel, but it was a wooden one, and I don't know what the heck I was thinking, but I was like, oh, something kind of hurts. I'm just going to keep going, and I didn't stop, and it cut my hand so bad that for the past, this is day 3, even like when I expose it to air, it burns. It's like a burning sensation. So that's why I have this gnarly band-aid. I feel like my hands are just not in the best of condition to be painting right now. But oh well. I guess you're here for the painting, not my hands. Okay, drag this out. Okay, let's do the same thing that we did below. And the reason why I dried this part is because I want there to be a contrast between the edges. So even if I was to accidentally go over onto this side, like and touch it, it automatically is going to be darker because it kind of acts as a layer, right? When you think of the wet on dry, we use that technique to layer and have things kind of stand out. And that's what we want here. We don't want this to be a soft blend. We kind of want it to look like not together. So you'll see here as well, like I'm not perfectly covering the whole surface with the yellow. I'm kind of moving around. Oh, this side's already dry. That's crazy. I'm just kind of moving around different spots. I'm leaving some highlights. leaving some of the browns for the shadowing. This part is not perfect. I'm not completely perfectly covering everything. But what I do want is there to be a little bit of shadow and darkness just ever so slightly under the plate. So I'm going to use that brown. I'm going to touch it with yellow. Okay. Okay, I have a harsh line now, so I'm going to want to blend it out. Just like that. Okay, perfect. I'm going to let this dry. The most important thing that we can do is create shadows with our table cover. So underneath the plate, you're going to find that there's the most aggressive shadow. So I went in with my first layer, which would be the yellow and brown. And now I'm going in around the plate. I went a little too far out, scooping that up. And I'm going to just literally layer the shadows. And also for the corner of the table cover as well. We want to make sure that we're shadowing that as well. So grab a little bit more pigment on my brush right underneath the plate. I'll probably stop the shadow, yeah, like right there, and bring this out. Using just water to break up any harsh lines so it blends nicely. I'm gonna dry it. While that's drying, I'm going in and shadowing where my ink line is. I'm gonna shadow right underneath the cup here as well. Not a lot, just a bit. Bring it down because it's a really tall glass. Do the same on this side. Shadow, shadow. I'm going to layer again. Right under here. Try it. Okay, I want to do it one more time. Okay. I feel like that's pretty good. And come across right here. Okay, so I want to kind of shadow a little bit down here as well, just because I feel like it's just a little dull. So I want to just give it a little bit of a shadow right here. Not much. Nothing crazy. And I want to kind of give this like a really fun design as well. So maybe I'll put like some shadow work right here. I'm just kind of following curves. Make it kind of look crocheted a bit. It's kind of what I'm thinking. Do on this side. That's fun. Okay, I'm going to shadow different parts again of the table cover. So the fun part about the table cover is this isn't supposed to be like the main focus, right? Which is why I've kind of went with some duller colors, not putting too much detail down, just enough where it just doesn't look flat. Shadowing is kind of the key piece here because it kind of makes it come alive. Okay, so let's go back to the ice. So I'm gonna pull in a lot more yellow here in the color that I have, and I'm just gonna touch around the ice parts right here. And outsource my orange right here. Kind of just touch while it's wet with some orange. So there's like a little bit of contrast. Just touching it now with a damp brush. Kind of lifted up too much color there. There we go. That kind of looks like ice. Okay, so with the glass, it's all about kind of like the shadows and whatnot as well. So I'm going in just the corner here with a little bit of blue, and I'm also going to be leaving some white space as well. And I'm going to use a little bit of gray around the edge right here. Going in here with some other color. I'll do the same up here. And I'm going to make the rim like kind of the bottom color as well. Like this cadmium red mix. I'm going to just do it around the rim to make it kind of stand out a little bit. And then I'm going to kind of have it drift into like a softer blend over here. And then I'm going to switch to that blue around here. Oh, it didn't pick up much. Right there. Maybe I'll put the blue right here too. Come in here again with the blue. So going around where the ink is with that darker color now. Here. Okay. So now I'm gonna go in with that darker color right here, and I'm just gonna do loose touches at the top of the ice cubes. Because looking at the reference photo here that I have, that's what looks like is happening with the ice. The tips of them are reflecting that deep color from the bottom. And it's even a little bit more muted with the orange underneath, like right here. So I'm tapping around where the ink mark is. It needs to be darker. Where the ink is right here to kind of just make the ice cubes stand out a bit. Just these ones that I've outlined. So whenever you see an outline, not the ones that we've freehanded, those are very subtle. This is the ones that I have penciled in for you guys. That's what we're going to touch on, okay? All right, so the ice cubes at the top are very much a mixture of like white space and the drink. So it's really key here to use really light brush strokes and leave white space. Yeah, because if you don't leave white space, it's not gonna look like you have much depth to it. Okay, so the background as well, now that I'm done with that part, it is gonna be a little bit of a soft blend with the blue of the sky. So I mixed a wash of the cadmium red with a little bit of blue. I'm going to go around the rim now. So I don't want it to be too dark. Okay. And then for the rim at the bottom, we're going to shadow it with black. And we're actually going to leave, and I'm going to do it at the bottom. And we're actually going to leave the bottom part white. There you go. I use the very tip of my brush, and I'm going to go in now and create some reflection. So keep in mind that the table cover is yellow. So I'm going to want to pull in at the bottom here just the hint of some of that yellow, even right here in the glass. You don't have to do a lot with the yellow, but just a little hint of it because it does shine through. I'm just touching different points of my glass. And I'm going to want to shadow just a little bit around the cup. Oh, sorry, the base of the glass. So wherever you see my line right here, you're going to want to just shadow it. You're just going to want to ever so slightly just touch it with that black or indigo and just shadow it out. And I'm going to shadow right in here with that cadmium's red color as well. It looks like the glass is picking up on that reflection as well. Okay. And the straw, I'm trying to decide what color I want to put the straw. So the inside's automatically going to be darker than the outside. So I'm going to do this kind of mix of that table cover in the cadmium's red that we were using. And it's slowly just going to start to disperse the straw. You won't be able to kind of see it as it goes down. You can still kind of, so I'm just kind of outlining the straw, what a straw would be, and calling it a day. Okay, so with the straw itself, let's just have it just be a shadow color almost. That would be white. So there we go. I'm just using the very tip of my brush to kind of blend that out a little bit. What is this? Okay, so for the orange, we're going to do very similar to what we just did with the watermelon. So we're going to use yellow, a little bit of orange. And I'm going to touch the very top of this line right here. Just like that. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm actually going to get rid of all of the water on my brush, and I'm going to drag down this edge color to create a more soft, natural blend. You guys see how that's coming down when I'm pulling it with just the water? And I'm going to want to, you can either just leave this to dry, or you can use the dryer like I have. And then I am going to now go in with my darker color for my orange. And do a very similar technique where I'm going to just get rid of all of the water on my brush, and just using the color that I've applied to my page, I'm just going to pull it down. So right here in the corner, this corner right here, this is going to be darker than say this part right here. So maybe I'm going to mix a little bit more red to that because I want it to stand out. Okay, same right here. Okay, so just using water now to pull it down. And I'm going in and I'm just touching different spots up top. I'm going to add a little bit of brown to this, and I'm going to tap down here as well to kind of just hide a little bit more of that ink. I want to hide this ink mark just a little bit more, so I'm going in with the blue to kind of just create a little bit more of like a dark circle right here. Sorry, a dark mark of my clouds to kind of act like a shadow because I want to blend it out. I don't want to be able to see my ink marks. That bothers me a lot. And I had a little spillage here, I guess, that I'm going to try to blend out. Trying to fix that. There we go. Got this gone. Let's do maybe a little bit more layer in here with my sky. So this is the wet on dry technique where we can go in now to create some more depth and layering with your sky. Just kind of makes it stand out a little bit more. And just touch with the tip of your brush different parts of your clouds. A little bit more darker over here. Perfect. I want to shadow a little bit more right here. I'm going to go in over top. And I just want to give this a little bit more pop. I also want to give the table down here a little shadow right here. Just want to give it just a little bit more shadow. Okay, there you have it. This little summer picnic table. Hope you enjoyed.